Horror in games is certainly a unique factor in making up what it is. One of the most interesting parts of it is what it can leave the mind thinking afterwards. There's a thrill to getting those jump scares and loud reactions, but when that horror goes away after experiencing it for the first time, I enjoy observing the environment and taking in all the fascinating hellscapes that have been created. It's why a game like Resident Evil 7 is still one I appreciate a lot. I do think other Resident Evil games have better gameplay, but man, the Baker's Residence is such a cool location that I loved exploring and was full of so much character. We're not here to talk about Resident Evil though, but rather the horror platformer Little Nightmares 2. In preparation for the release of this game, I bought Little Nightmares 1 when it was on sale for Switch. I seriously don't recommend you play that version though, as the load times are way longer than they have any right to be, and you'll be dealing with them every time you die, which happens a lot. Even with that major gripe though, I still really enjoyed my time with the game. Sure, it is really short, really short, but it's a solid experience with really cool monster designs, environments, and a memorable as hell ending. Playing through both the main story and DLC was enough to turn me into a Little Nightmares fan, but Little Nightmares 2 was the game that I was really wanting to play. Once again developed by Tarsier Studios under the publishing of Bandai Namco, Little Nightmares 2 is released on February 11th of this year, so this game is still pretty fresh in everyone's minds. It's pretty much on all modern platforms, and I heard the Switch version has fast load times like the rest of the ports, so that's good for anyone who's stuck with that system only. Myself though, I went ahead and got on the PS4, just for that higher fidelity and junk, you know how that goes. Enough with this introductory stuff though, let's finally enter this Little Nightmare world. Again. Because the number 2. The title screen is certainly one that leaves a lot on the mind. This shot of the outskirts of the city creates this idea that the title represents us being on the verge of the nightmares that await this location, which is known as the Pale City. It has the same amount of wonder and mystery as the first game's title screen, which I like a lot. The game begins with us being in the forest, us being our protagonist, Mono. We seem to be in a relatively safe space, just the open forest with some TVs lying around. Pretty different from the first game where we were 6, stuck in a confined space, giving us the idea that we're trapped and we should get out of here. But not here though. We don't seem to be trapped anywhere, so our goal isn't to escape from any specific place. So what really is Mono's goal? Whatever his goal is, he's clearly putting himself through dangerous hazards, as the further we venture through the forest, traps are laid throughout, and there happens to be a number of people that weren't so lucky with avoiding them. There's a bunch of cages, bear traps, nets, and trap wires laid throughout that'll instantly kill you if you get into any of them. Still though, there are ways to bypass them, and we're able to traverse through the forest. But about actually doing said things, just like the first game, this is a 3D puzzle platformer. For Mono's base moveset, he can jump, climb, crawl, swing, push and pull objects, and pick up stuff that you can throw. You're going to be applying all these moves for pretty much the whole game, such as how to deal with these bear traps. You can swing branches into them to set them off, or throw pine cones to set off chain reactions. There's going to be a whole lot of weight to your movement and jumps. The best thing I could compare it to is a more rigid version of how Uncharted feels. Even when making jumps like this, it feels like Mono has to exert himself forward, so the point I'm trying to make is that don't go in expecting a platformer like 3D Mario. Either way, I'd still say how Mono controls works very well for what the game is going for, and it does make it satisfying when you get through the fast-paced chases or escapes, like you really earned surviving that situation. After making it through some of the forest, we arrive at this household. Sure, there's a bunch of unsettling aspects about this house, but we soon find another kid like us after scaring the crap out of them as you replicate The Shining. We offer a hand to her, but she rejects us and flees out of the room, but we end up traversing through the house together when it becomes clear that the puzzles will require both of our participation. Soon we were able to make it out of the forest to where we enter the Pale City itself, and from then on, you work together with your companion as you try to face the nightmares that await. It'll be a dangerous travel through both indoors and outdoors, as what exactly our destination is becomes more and more clear the deeper you get into this terrifying world. And what a world it is, man, cause holy crap, does this game look utterly gorgeous! The first game already looked really nice with some amazing shots being featured, but they really amped things up for Little Nightmares 2, dude. The environments in this game are really something to behold. They're based on environments we're likely familiar with, yet they have this very decrepit and twisted feeling to them now, and nothing ever feels stiff. You got these lockers all bent and messed up, and even when you enter the city for the first time, the buildings are all weirdly curved. This makes the environments beautiful to take in, but also kind of fascinating as well, cause why the heck are these things like this? Why are the buildings so curved? What's up with all the eyeball imagery everywhere? Why are the TVs in so many locations? Why are there piles and piles of plastic limbs and general body parts being kept in the hospital? And why is it so interesting to think about? It's one thing to have environments that are stunning to look at, but Little Nightmares 2 also leave you remembering its environments for how mysterious they are and how much they leave up to the mind. The colors too are really nice. This game uses a lot of blue for its lighting in both darker environments and the night sky, and I love it so much. One of my favorite shots in this game is when you're going across this beam over a massive cliff and the camera slowly pans out, showing off how massive a world it really is and how small and insignificant you are by comparison. That's another thing too, the size of your character. Despite how tiny Mono will be on the screen, I could always tell where he was. Even with his browner and darker colors compared to 6, the lighting of this game always made it so that he has some sort of outline a lot of the time. Mono's design also plays into this. The paper bag he wears gives his head a clear square shape, which also helps to make the outline of his character more distinct. You can collect different hats for Mono to wear, which basically acts as a collectible, but I pretty much just stuck with his default paper bag because I think the design is already great as is. Mono sticks out just the right amount as a result. You can tell where he is and feel in control, but he always feels like he belongs in the environments he's in. He's another component in this world, which helps to highlight how good looking each chapter is. The chapters as well feel a lot more diverse than the first game. Not only does each location itself tackle a unique component of the world, but they'll also highlight a specific mechanic. The first chapter, like I said before, has you dodging a bunch of traps, but chapter 2 has the largest focus on direct combat, cause you'll be using weapons to smash the heads of these little kids that fill the school. The heads are also hollow too, so there's certainly the question of how alive these things really are. Your swings have a lot of wind up and cooldown time, so you really have to be careful with your timing when attacking, cause one miss and that'll likely spell the end for you if they're about to attack. Still though, it doesn't change the fact how satisfying it feels to lift that thing over your head and BAM! So good! These bullies, unlike one other enemy, are the only ones that you can actually fight against. And speaking about the general monsters in this game, wow are they cool. I completely skimmed over the hunter in the forest, but boy is he a good first impression. You first see him while you're sneaking behind him as he's doing well, it's hard to pinpoint what exactly he's doing, but I just know it's something not good. There's nothing too creepy about his physical character, but his house has a bunch of fake people in it, and he's also got a freaking shotgun so he can kill your ass from a distance. The teacher though, oh my god, she's probably the most terrifying monster in the game, as she can go all Mr. Fantastic with her neck and will reach out from absurd distances to eat you like a snack. Like I'm over here doing a stealth section where I'm just under her sights until I get caught at the last second so I make a run for it, and whoa, holy crap, that is unsettling! The way her face feels so doll-like too and the noises, it's so freaking creepy, I love it. The mannequins in the hospital too are insane. They're the kind of enemies that only move in the dark, so this is the chapter that incorporates a flashlight so you can stun them. But they're still nimble as heck. The movements as well are so robotic and strange that it leaves me wanting to escape these rooms as soon as possible. It also makes me question how alive these things really are, just like the bullies in the school. Did the doctor in the hospital do this to them? And for what reason? We also see a bunch of skin-like masks in the lower levels, so is it possible the residents of the city are being turned into more object-like forms? Or maybe they're being replaced entirely and the doctor's essentially creating new life? Still so much to take in even as I'm hiding for my life. Speaking of that, stealth is also a major factor. Since these monsters will tower over you, you will often have to sneak your way through the areas without being spotted. Otherwise, it's time to start running and praying. It's intimidating how closely they can get at times, as you're just forced to hide. Like an example is having to go by the teacher, but to get to the next room, you have to crawl on the table and hide behind all the jars to evade her sight. It's really cool, but oh god damn it! They don't really seem to care about your friend though. They can just do things like run on ahead and they won't really care. Alright, your companion. You often split apart from them, but they'll usually help you out with puzzles when they're around. They're basically mandatory help, and you don't really have any control over them besides using the call button to grab their attention. It's nothing that groundbreaking from a gameplay perspective, but it still feels nice to have them around to help you out. And you can even hold their hand as you move. Ain't that just adorable? And on the subject of characters, I kind of hold a strong attachment to Mono despite the game having no dialogue. I just really love his design. I don't know who invented this circular eyes and coat that drags a bit behind the character look, but I can't get enough of it. The little call sounds he makes as well are also really cute. He has a more dependable and kind-hearted feeling compared to 6. As you can tell, he's willing to lend out to others, and has goals that aren't just escaping from a predicament. But still, what are his goals exactly? Well, that whole conversation involves them big ol' spoilers, so go to this point if you don't want them spoilers. But I want to get to them spoilers because I played the game and I want to talk about them, so yeah. Alright, let's get to spoilers. So for Mono's goals, as far as the game shows, it's clear he wants to go to this signal tower within the city. It seems to be some sort of center point for all the nightmares that are in this city. The TVs laid everywhere probably project whatever the heck that signal tower wants them to, corrupting all those who watch the TV. Specifically all these civilians who don't even have faces anymore, and will literally die to watch the TV or just straight up take their lives in view of the signal tower. As you get close to the signal tower, however, Mono keeps coming into contact with these TVs that transport him into this hallway. The very same hallway that the game starts with, that has a door with an eye at the end of it. We keep trying to open it throughout the game, but we keep getting pulled out by our companion, who, by the way, is 6 from the first game. Once we do get to open the door, however, Mono ends up releasing this tall man who has reality warping powers and kidnaps 6 before our eyes, leaving us alone as we figure out how to use the TVs to our advantage. Mono ends up discovering his ability to teleport between TVs, which leads to some really cool puzzles. After escaping the tall man some more, Mono awakens his hidden powers he secretly had as he takes off his bag and destroys the tall man with his own hands. So that means this bag must have been both a way to hide away from the world and also to conceal what Mono is really capable of. Heading into the signal tower at last reveals the same hallway we've been seeing before, so maybe this tower has been calling to Mono this whole time. Maybe Mono doesn't understand why this tower is calling to him, but he's determined to make it there regardless, even if it means surviving the nightmares of the Pale City. The further we go into this tower, the more distorted reality gets, like it's a place that's in between dimensions or just ignores the boundaries of existence. Eventually though, we find 6 who's become this gigantic and horrifying monster that is clinging onto a music box, similarly to how we found 6 at the beginning of the game. Our goal ends up being to destroy this music box, which let's just say doesn't make 6 very happy, as she's willing to kill Mono if it means protecting her music box, and growing especially out of control whenever Mono calls to her with his familiar voice. If I were to take a shot at interpreting what's happening here, I think I should first try to interpret what the game overall is trying to convey. There are many ways to picture what the heck Little Nightmares' story is, but I cling on most to the idea that this series is meant to capture all the fears that stem from our childhood. The main characters are 2 kids that are tiny compared to the rest of the world that towers over them, which is comparable to how kids can likely feel in this overwhelming world. One of the main locations in this game is the school where the monster is the strict teacher that watches over them and can monitor areas with a stretching neck. Not to mention the fact that the child enemies that can gang up on you are specifically called bullies. The whole hospital chapter could be based on how kids could see these kind of locations, but not exactly understand the purpose. A doctor can suddenly become a lot more terrifying when you don't know what they're actually doing to the people in those gowns. I could go on and on with making all these comparisons, but I think this is a really fitting idea for what the heck these nightmares are supposed to be. Heck, the name of this series is Little Nightmares, the little fears of a child turn into the biggest nightmares. That doesn't really give a solid answer as to what the story is, but that's just my take on what the game is trying to overall convey. As for this beast though, I think 6 is stuck in a state where everything has gotten to her so bad that she's retracted herself to her original state of comfort, which was the music box, rejecting every other aspect of life and having her whole existence reliant on this object. It's a really interesting fight with her, as you have to figure out ways to reach and hit the music box while using your calls to 6 as a way to distract her. It's interesting hearing the sort of desperation that Mono has with his calls as he yells out to his friend each time, but every time 6 rejects his calls and lashes out. Once the music box is finally destroyed, 6 is able to return to normal, but there's no time to celebrate as the tower reveals its true form as another monster itself, possibly the most powerful being in the whole series. The final chase of the game leads to this final moment where you have made one last leap to grab 6's arms so she can pull you up like she always has. She just has to do it again, right? But she doesn't. One final rejection of Mono's friendship, and a betrayal to forever cut their ties. This leads to Mono plummeting all the way down this monster's insides, and the only thing there besides a large number of eyes surrounding you is a chair. Suddenly we're in an empty void of a room. There's nothing for Mono to do except sit down. The only person he ever had a connection with had betrayed him, and now he's trapped within this hellhole of a tower/monster. Mono as a term can mean one or alone. The fear of being alone is a very real one, and in this moment, Mono is nothing but alone. And here's when we see another fear of childhood personified: growing up. A new track starts to play as the sound of a ticking clock looms behind it. As the clock ticks and time moves forward, Mono grows older, his figure becoming taller, more content, more lifeless. He grows and grows until finally he becomes the tall man himself. The same tall man that previously hunted you in 6. The same tall man that has control over the TVs, that warps the minds of all those that watch. The same tall man that Mono defeats. Now forever stuck in a time loop, the door holding him closes, awaiting for the poor Mono from the past that follows these calls to the TV, unaware of the horrifying reasons why it's calling him. The game ends where it began, a shot of the door with an eye as it waits to be opened again. What's worse than a nightmare? A nightmare that never ends. Low Numbers 2, like the first game, has no dialogue at all. It's all wordless storytelling and it's awesome to see. This game has a clear show don't tell mentality, and I feel that's really effective for getting across how horrific of a world this game really holds. When the unknowns are left up to our own imagination, it can be even more effective than when it's outright told to us. There's so much to talk about with theories, what the overall theme is, how people characterize the two main characters even though there's no dialogue. There's a lot of interesting conversations to be had about this game, and I still feel like I barely scratched the surface in the spoiler section. I'd love to hear what anyone has to say about this game and the ideas or headcanons they have, so feel free to drop something like that in the comments, and maybe we can get our own conversation started there, who knows. Either way though, Low Numbers 2 is such a freaking cool game, man. I really enjoy and appreciate the first game a lot, but this game feels like the natural expansion of what the first game set down. I'd still probably say it's best to start with the first game though, and then get to this one, just to appreciate a lot of how this game builds upon the first Little Nightmares. It won't take that long either, because the first game plus its DLC will only take about 5 hours, and that's about as long as what this game would take on your first playthrough. I know that's pretty short, and the game is currently $30 as well, but I do not regret my purchase at all, and I immediately wanted to replay it all over again once I beat it for the first time. If you enjoyed the first game, then you'll definitely find a lot to love with this game. It seems that Little Nightmares 3 is pretty unlikely since the studio behind the game, Tarsier Studios, has moved on from the series to work on new IPs. I'll admit that's a tiny bit disappointed to hear since I love this game so much, and I think a third game as a last expansion to this fascinating world would have been really cool, but regardless, I am very happy with what we've got, and I hope for the best with whatever Tarsier Studios works on next. It's still a great time to jump into this series and see what it has to offer. There's tons of fans out there that share a passion for these games, and hey, just like Little Nightmares 2 itself, even the worst nightmares can become a little bit more bearable when you're not alone. Oh, why is the mic still? Hey, if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. If you want to check out other stuff, I made a ghost trick video. I also did an Amori OST tier list. If you're into that as well, that was pretty fun. And you can subscribe if you want tacos, minus the tacos.